get started.
Okay.
So with that, let's all just stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if everyone has the agenda in front of them. Thank you for the guests coming on and joining us today. We appreciate that, but I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Tonight.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. At this time, I'd like to see if there's any public comment. Anything for anybody to say? I understand that Bob Finley and Eric Nelson have joined us. Do you guys have anything to say this early in the meeting? I know it's your first time joining us. Well, maybe not Bob, but Eric.
And Don Villano's on also.
Oh, hi, Dominic.
Not at this time, Brian. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, just in listening mode, Brian. Thanks.
Okay. Any other public comment? Want to just ask a third time? Okay. Doesn't sound like there's anything. With that being said, I'd like to see if there's any comment or from our team on the February minutes.
No, I'll make a motion that we approve the February meeting minutes.
Yep, approved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so moved. Jim, the floor is yours.
All right, good evening, everybody. So we've been, I just want to bring you guys up to speed on a lot of things that are happening in the town and give you a little, insight on what we're seeing through the land use department as well as the building department. Recently, I'm not sure if you all have a copy, but recently Keith Rosenfeld, who's the town planner, now we utilize Keith through the COG agreement with the town of Seymour. He works for us like 2.5 days. That started in Kurt's administration, and it's working out very, very good. Keith brings a lot of expertise, over 30 years of expertise. And he's worked on multiple towns, and most of his career has been spent in the Naugatuck Valley. So it's very helpful. So we started off looking at our regulations, the zoning regulations. And what we found is the zoning regulations were a little bit outdated. They hadn't been reviewed or updated since 2007. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to make them a little easier to move through for any type of development. Instead of the big trend now is to create what's called PDD zones, plan design development. A lot of developers and designers like that, so they can create mixed use developments, which is very popular now. So conventional zoning is kind of moved away, and we've got a little bit of a hybrid, and we wanted our zoning regulations to be able to adapt to that. So we've completed a complete rewrite, and that rewrite is going to be discussed through planning and zoning this year. Hopefully we can get back to in-person meetings and we can hit that target of maybe later 2021, end of summer, maybe fall, of complete adoption of those regulations. One of the regulations that has already been reworked was the RC3 zone. And that zone is primarily along the Route 34 corridor. And Route 34 has a high traffic count, but as all of us know, that it really hasn't seen any kind of major development one of the reasons why is we don't have sanitary source. We have limited water supply, but the sewer problem definitely is not probably anything we're going to see soon. However, it has good soil conditions, so the new technology of septic systems and so on, we could do a lot more there. And the other thing is a lot of it lies in the aquifer protection zone. But to follow up on that, the RC3 zone, instead of applying regulations of saying so many things were not allowed, we changed those regulations to basically say they're allowed under special permit or under site plan, which basically says we'll listen to a developer's idea, we'll listen to the concept, and if the town of Seymour feels that that concept's in line with their development standards and plan of conservation and development, we could approve it. That's already seeing some benefits. We've got one project underway that Mike's well aware of, in a vineyard type, commercial type mixed use development. But recently we had, just this morning, we had conversations. We've been working with a developer on the site, which is across from the Stone's Throw, the old Stone's Throw restaurant, which is being redeveloped, and that will probably come back to life probably early summer, late spring, early summer. We're looking at a 45,000 square foot building. The developer was really wanted to keep a mixed use design where he had commercial floors on the bottom level and residential on the second and third floor. You're seeing that in Shelton, you're seeing that, throughout the valley. But in the conversation today, the developer said, look, commercial is so, let's put it this way, COVID's really distressed the commercial market. There's a lot of availability. Business has gone out. We could see that, all over the valley. So they decided that they want to concentrate on residential, which is the uptick through most of Shelton and most of Derby. So we're looking at a 45,000 square foot building, 3 floors, and that's pretty much they're well underway with that. They're talking with their architects and they're investing probably best guess numbers, probably $150,000 in architectural design. The site plans have already been completed. So that's something that's going to hit. Following along that line, we have over on Spring Street, already approved, shovels going in the ground probably within the next month, a 90-unit affordable housing project. Now, most people confuse that with low income and everything else. Affordable housing under the Connecticut statute is just a guideline that certain units have to be available. They're market rate apartments, and certain units have to be available for people that meet criteria. They're meant for, teachers, law enforcement. They're targeted that way. They're not high end, but they're certainly not low income. So that's going to be going off 90 units. So that's something that Seymour's, I think it's going to be pretty well received when it's finished. It's going to be a process, probably a lot of upset residents. We had 3 months, almost 4 months of public hearings on that. And, but I think it's going to be good for the town. You also received, you should have an inventory of all the town-owned properties. Now, that list was put together just for the selectmen and through, if you will, we wanted to put a plan out there. We own quite a bit of property in Seymour. However, most of the property we own is taken up by detention basins, open space, dedicated open space. So easements, things like that. A lot more property is under the land trust. So we really don't own any developable property. And that was one of the assessments we wanted to look at. did the town possess any property that was, would be helpful for economic development? Aside from 98 Bank Street, which is where the Board of Ed offices are in the Valley Health, the town is on the short end of that deal. The town's been looking to put that back in a private developer's hands. We do have some interest in that. However, you know, the leases that the town gave out, and you know, the movement or where the Board of Education is going to end up still has to be determined. As well as a good example of town property was the Maple Street School project. That was turned over to a private developer, and 41 units of market rate was put in, and I believe they're at 90% capacity. So having said all that, you can see the trend of the town is definitely geared towards that bedroom, commuter style type of development. As far as the commercial assessments that we've made, of course, we have, which you all know, we have Tri-Town. The owner of Tri-Town's been very difficult through the years. He doesn't really bring too much to the table as far as what can go in there. He's kind of a hit or miss guy. And, you know, it's private ownership. As a town, I know a lot of people say we should. We don't own it. That's just the way it goes. Same thing with the old Seymour lumber site and the Housatonic wire site right adjacent to Franklin Street. We don't own it. They control it, and that's the way it goes. However, the one thing I would encourage the Economic Development Commission to do is maybe to reach out to both owners who've shown a lot of interest in marketing their property, but maybe with a little help from economic development and the town side, we could put together some conceptual renderings of a mixed-use building, something that could be marketed by the town of Seymour with the agreement of those two owners. It's prime land for some kind of development. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
When you say the two owners, which two owners are you talking about? Because you mentioned 3 properties. I just want to make sure we're clear. When you say
Well,
two owners.
So we have the Housatonic Wire Company where the factory burned and had been demolished. That property is down along the river. And then we have the old Seymour lumber site where we also had the properties demolished. 2 separate owners, but you can see that both properties could almost be combined. I think a developer would like to look at those as combined property. But our regulations, so we've already set in place our PDDs. We've already set our mixed uses. All the tools are in the toolboxes. So, you know, I would encourage economic development to reach out to the owners and say, hey, look, maybe the town could help market those properties. And, you know, if we could put together some sketches or some conceptual renderings of saying, you know, would it be the proper place for having a mixed development of residential and some maybe professional office or maybe some commercial space? It seems that developers really want the combination now. They really want to take advantage of all the areas that they can and do these mixed uses. The building code, the nice thing about the building code does allow for this, and you're seeing it done in New Haven, and you're seeing it done throughout the lower Naugatuck Valley. Shelton's a very prime example of that. When you go over the bridge, the Derby Shelton Bridge, you've got residential and commercial mixed together.
Jim, but one of the things you, as you said, pointed out, you got to go under special permit or a PDD because under normal FAR, you really can't get maximization of the property.
Well, as far as Seymour, as far as our regulations go, it would depend on the engineering and the designing. So, and the state has had the Route 67 corridor project sitting around for 20 years which started out being a taking of the other properties for the widening of the road. And it seems like the state has kind of dropped off with that. And we kind of chuckle in the office and we say, well, what's it going to be now? Maybe a couple of plantings and a park bench. We got the development across the street with the Wendy's and the Walgreens. We've got 12-unit condominium that was put on top. So, it just seems like we as a town can't entice any developers. How do we get the word out that our regulations are there for you to do some very good value engineering and good design? And that's the point. From the land use side, we have to wait till a project is brought to us. I know your commission is, looking into how can we better do that. So I guess my point is that in the regulations, all of those things are in there right now. I think Seymour's done an excellent job in putting in the tools for developers. Now, whether we can entice them or not, well, that needs to be determined. We thought we had a major box store coming into the Tri-Town Plaza. We did a lot of legwork and it went to a bust. So, we're here to help.
Can you give some feedback as to why?
Well, evidently we saw some things. We made a commitment from the town to look at a lot of these things seriously, and it might have just been pure economics where it didn't work out for the developer or it didn't work out for the retailer. Demographics, I know, and Mike, maybe you can help out. You probably know these numbers better than me, but the big box stores like to have about a 70,000 population demographic.
Yeah,
And right, is that about correct, Mike?
yeah, the reach, but you also got to look at the competitors around you.
Right. Well, exactly. But people wonder, well, why does Ansonia get something? Why does Derby get something? Well, when you start swinging those radiuses, Ansonia and Derby, you start looking at each other, and they start swinging into Shelton. They start swinging into each other. When you come over to Seymour and you start swinging those radiuses, we're doing really good on our southern borders where we're getting some population. But then we start swinging into Woodbridge. We start swinging into Oxford, where we decrease. So we may not be hitting those target numbers for the demographics of some of the big box stores. And they target it. That's what they target. Just like CVS. If CVS is close by, Walgreens is going to be close by. If Burger King's around, McDonald's is going to be around. So those are some of the challenges that we have. But I guess my point with sharing with you tonight is that you can feel confident that the regulations and the land use department has, over the last year, maybe 2 years, really set themselves up to put all these tools in the toolbox. So when a project comes to Seymour, we can really facilitate that. Again, of course, we're always looking for the good engineering. We're always looking for the good projects. But we seem to be tending to hear more. There was a push for the Housatonic Wire. One developer was going to develop what he started off with was a grand project, went to a strip mall, which we have vacancies throughout our strip malls in the town. And then he ended up with a used storage. Now, is it allowed? Yes. Is it the best use of the property? We as a town would think we'd rather have something of mixed development. Better for the residents, better for the town, and better for the tax base. So, if anybody has any questions, I can go over items in specifics. But my point today is that we really taken the time to adjust these regulations to meet the 2020 development standards.
I do have some questions about the document that was sent over from Keith.
Yes.
So you're saying there's no developable property. How about those ones that say vacant lot?
Right. So there are several on there of vacant lots. Most of them would be for residential. Some of those were left out. They're parcels that didn't get developed, that could be sold off, but not in a economic development way. There's parcels that, the town, some of them have been taken by tax foreclosure and sit on, for example, the town just concluded a tax sale over on West Street. So our purpose of that was to take an inventory off the books of everything the town of Seymour basically has ownership to, and to look at all of it. We have a large parcel, the biggest parcel that we have, one of the biggest, are used for parks. Now the town back in, again, Mike, you might be able to help me with the dates. The town took back in the 80s, we took along the Rotary. I believe the town spent about $1.5 million in there at the time when development was really at its height. People didn't want to see that development, and the state bought what was the Birmingham utility property, where Toll Brothers was going to put in a 55 and older. That was a big battle in the town of Seymour. The residents didn't want it. I feel that we lost out. It ended up right down the street with the Haynes development, which is 90% Oxford. Oxford's receiving all the tax benefits. And then Pulte Homes came in and put in the Oxford Greens. So I think the town was short-sighted on that. Some would disagree with me, but the state owns that land now. And then the town of Seymour bought for about 1.5 million the old reservoir, which we also have a dam on, which is under review. The state's issuing. So that's that. We actually bought a liability.
Yeah, exactly.
How we ended up buying a liability, but at the time, the town thought that was a good idea. So
What
we
old
really.
reservoir are you talking about?
What's that?
What old reservoir?
That's along at the Rotary heading towards
188.
188 to Route 34.
Going
Okay.
down the hill.
Yep.
The right-hand side. Now, we've looked at that property, and during the Miller administration, he really wanted to see that developed into walking trails and a dog park for residents. And as much as that we don't consider that economic development, we consider that maybe a little bit more of a quality of life issue, which helps. Again, we look at our neighboring towns. Shelton's done things like that. They're big into recreation, and I think that also plays in with economic development when you're marketing the town, that we do have these facilities. So that's still being kicked around a little bit. I personally would like to see it as a resident of Seymour, but I'm not really happy just seeing the land just sit there with the tornado came and blew all the trees down, and it doesn't look that great. I'd like to see the residents be able to use it for recreation. So to answer your question, that's really what we've come up with that inventory that we sent over to you is like a kickoff. We don't really have anything that we can put into the market for economic development. The industrial park, I believe, is full. I believe it's all full. We have
The one
right,
parcel that came before us a couple months ago. That's it. That's left.
which Roller Cover bought the old D-Cars building, and then he bought the two adjacent lots that D-Cars family owned. And then we have the one that's sitting that Mark Oskowski owns, which is the Earthworks. That was hopefully would have saw the car dealer move up the street. That fell through. That car dealer went to Bethany, and I know Mark, their company is marketing that. So having said that, the rest of it, I believe, is owned by most of it's owned by Basement Systems.
Yeah, we should just rename it Janeski Park.
We should, and to the town really kicked in, for the companies up there where we I believe we spent close to $1 million, it might be more, on resurfacing the road. So the industrial park kind of looks great. It really does. So that's a real feather in the town's cap. I mean, you know, we're working with industry there, and I think the town did a great job on that. You know, we're looking, and we're always talking with the Haynes Company on whether their project over on Derby Avenue, which is their used to be their concrete plant, but now they're outdoor living. That site's still being prepared. There's a lot of rock there. That's actually under a site plan, even though most people think it's a quarry. So we'll be looking in the future to see what they did. And if you look at that, it's very similar to what they had in Oxford, where they quarried for many years, getting that rock out of there and getting that product out of there. And, you know, we look to have some development there, as well as their property on Franklin Street behind Stop and Shop.
So I know Rory's on the phone too. So what are we doing with the calls that are, so if we do get any calls, which I guess we've gotten a few, not many. I don't know if we've had any recently, of someone looking for properties, or what is the process that we're gonna take from this day forward to do with those calls? What are we doing?
Yeah, so, you know, we get a variety of calls. Karen had requested that I send her a summary of the calls. So I had been doing that. I don't know if she was forwarding those to the rest of you. There's a variety of calls. So some of you may know we had a fire on Main Street in the fall. So one of the property owners was looking for whatever type of economic development assistance the town could provide. So, you know, I told him about the tax incentive program. I turned him on to, what is it called? The economic development, or the enterprise zone corridor. Just what I happen to know of. There are some commercial realtors who will reach out. Now, you know, the ones that are looking for industrial properties. We don't have an inventory. So I will do a quick search of commercial realty to see if there's anything, but you know, one of the calls that we got was looking for a very clean industrial property. The only industrial property that was for sale in the town is the former Slick Bar property, which would not be very clean and has some parking issues and some other constraints on it. So I was able to tell him confidently that, you know, we do not have anything available. They run the gamut. Some of them are small business owners. Some of them are realtors looking to place a tenant. You know, I will continue when you guys have elected a new chair to send along what comes in, so you're seeing what it is. And the answer is that I do the best I can, and I reach out to people who know more than I do. That includes Sadie, who, you know, you guys have worked with, because Advanced CT remains a resource for us.
And I want to thank you for, I mean, you've really jumped in and taken these calls while, you know, we don't really have an EDC director, but how would we go about then getting, if we don't have an inventory, how do we go about that?
You know, it's the reason that we need a director. We need to fill that position because it's something that needs to be stayed on top of, between, you know, keeping our downtown, all of the slots filled down there, making sure the industrial park, you know, is maximized to its potential, and, you know, working with these realtors who call in to try and place tenants and bring more businesses into town. The only way to stay on top of it is to have someone doing it constantly.
Yeah. My concern is I just don't, you know, if this position doesn't get filled, if we don't, you know, we don't have someone till next year, we've missed out opportunities this year.
And it's something that I have stressed to the Board of Selectmen when the topic has come up. They have said repeatedly that they are, they do not want to fill the position while COVID is ongoing. And personally, I do not understand that because, if the purpose of economic development is to diversify the tax base and reduce the burden on our residents, then, I would view it as an investment, but that's not the approach that they have taken. So, but in conversation with the first select woman, now that vaccination is, moving along nicely, and some of the restrictions that are in place are being loosened, and we're hoping to see a seasonal pattern where the infection rate drops precipitously as the weather warms. The first select woman wants to make it a priority and bring it back to the selectmen to hopefully fill that position sooner rather than later.
Rory, they're one of the biggest problems that we have is some of the properties that Jim mentioned, downtown, the Hostock Wire and the Lumberyard, they want a lot of money for those properties. So you're not going to have a developer come in, invest in the property, then have to invest in the buildings. So how, one of the things the town needs to do is really look at how can we help tax abatement wise, how can we help, infrastructure wise, so that it cuts down their costs. And that's one of the things that, the EDC and the town officials need to work with to make sure that we can focus everybody's attention at those sites so we can get them developed.
Yeah, so, the board, we were cleaning up some of the, a lot of, I'm sure you guys will know because Sadie brought them to you. We had some tax incentive applications back in late 2019. Those projects, some of them were delayed because of COVID, and only now are, I had gone back through Sadie's records and reached out to these people and say, hey, it looks like you started the process but never finished it. And in doing so, reviewing the tax incentive policy of the town, it was supposed to be, the Board of Selectmen are supposed to review it every 5 years. It was from 2012, to my knowledge, it was never reviewed. So the Board of Selectmen will be reviewing that. I'm going back with the assessor's records and doing just kind of a summary analysis of all of the tax incentive applications that the town has had with the various programs over the years going back to the mid-90s. And so they'll be looking at the tax incentives and hopefully, changing those as they see fit to improve things. In terms of the infrastructure, Jim had mentioned the Route 34 corridor and some of the concerns there with sewers. The cost of the infrastructure is such that some of it, people have looked at it in the past. The cost of putting in sewer lines doesn't ever go down. And in terms of like the maximum development potential, the tax revenue may not offset the costs in a payback period where it wouldn't have to be absorbed by the taxpayers. So a lot of these things, the constraints, the geographical constraints and the infrastructure constraints have been looked at. It's not to say that they shouldn't be looked at periodically to see whether the situation has changed. There are things like broadband internet, fiber internet connections that might help to lure some tech companies, and that's really a chicken or the egg discussion. If we build it, will they come? It's not. I think we need to look at these things, but I think in terms of the steps that have to be taken, well, number one, let me go back. The first select woman will be presenting her budget, which is just a recommendation. The Board of Finance makes the ultimate determination, but the first select woman will be presenting her budget next Monday. In that budget, she brought it to the Board of Selectmen as to what they wanted to do in terms of the Economic Development Director position. and they indicated that they wanted to keep the budget level for economic development. So keep it as is. In the last budget, obviously some money was moved around with contingency, but that money would all be restored. So that we're looking at probably a part-time position when it is filled.
Okay. To me, I just think, well, we could talk about this in length, but I mean, we're just gonna have to see what we can do. Whether, even if it is a part-time position, by the time you post it and you interview and you hire someone, you know, we need to come up with a plan on what we can be doing short-term now without that position filled.
The other
You know, if I just jump in there for a little bit, back to what Rory was talking about. A lot of contacts are made through to the department. Our department is land use. So a lot of those things, if you will, our department, we're the nuts and bolts guys. We're the guys that are working with the regulations, working with the codes and everything else. We're definitely not, although we're all pro Seymour, we're not the, if you will, the salesman. We're there to make sure that compliance to the regulations, good projects come across, and regulations are met. And I'd like to just mention what Mike was talking about too. I absolutely agree with Mike. Is, you know, when you have these properties for economic development and they're in private ownership, they're the captains of their own ship. I would agree some of those prices were well over what the market would bear, and I think that's where an economic developer, an economic director, or your commission really needs to come in and help pull that together. Because, you know, any of us down in the land use and building department, we're ultimately the ones that are going to be reviewing and making sure they're going to be in compliance. So I just want you to know, like I said, the tools are there and the department's there, and I would be in favor of the economic development director, even in a part-time manner, time frame. But you know, at that point, you're looking for a salesman, because we've got plenty of people that approach the town of Seymour. I want to do this, I want to do that, and they don't want to spend any money. They just want to do it under their own terms. And that's the one thing that the town of Seymour does not want to happen. We don't want it, you know, put together in a fashion it's not cohesive for the town. We see that all the time. And so, you know, I agree with what Mike said before. Some of these parcels, I noticed up at Tri-Town, they've changed realtors again. And now they have one of the better realtors in the area that's been he's a very proven track record. But again, what ends up there is going to be a private development and a private company's decision. And hopefully we get some sales force on the ground that can help them along with the town side of it. But, you know, again, you know, any calls we get into our office, we can't speak as salesmen down there. We have to, we're pretty specific in the rules and the regulations.
Right, so that's the biggest problem that you have. So you have nobody that acts as an intermediary between the owner and the land use office.
We need a liaison is what we need. And well, I thank everyone for their input. Jim, thank you. That was good to get a nice little learning. You too, Rory. But
if I could just add one more thing, just to make you guys aware, it'll be very quick, I promise. We had been put in touch through the Council of Governments with, there is an organization that has been created that is hoping to become a regional economic development corporation in the Waterbury area. So it's the Naugatuck Valley Economic Development Corporation. Right now it is one person, but he's well connected, and he's working on drafting legislation to expand. And the idea is something
who is that?
to what CERC had. but local to the economic or Naugatuck Valley area. So the first selectwoman and I had a brief introductory conversation, just something to keep in mind. Right now, they don't even have the capacity, but as a potential, when the time comes, if they do expand the way that they're hoping to, I would like to connect them with you guys.
Yeah, just to add on to that.
Who is it?
It's Ron Pugliese, and that's who you're talking about.
It
in
was,
Naugatuck.
Tommy Hyde was his name.
Okay, Tom. But
Oh, could you say that again? I'm sorry, Tommy.
Hyde.
Thanks.
Didn't Beacon Falls just team up with Naugatuck's EDC?
Yeah, so there were two things going on. Basically, there are, both were kind of formed because there are, my understanding of this is that there are properties that kind of straddle the borders. And so they wanted to take a regional approach with a regional entity that would facilitate things. And I believe that was the Naugatuck Beacon Falls one.
Well, Beacon Falls originally was with had Sadie from Cirque, and then Seymour jumped into that. And Rory, what's the status right now with Cirque and Sadie? I haven't talked to her. I work very
Sadie's
closely
old
with her in
news.
Beacon Falls, but
They
it's old news.
Yeah, Sadie's no longer working.
I'm sorry,
with
is that
us.
what you said, Brian?
Yes, it's.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
She moved on to bigger and better things because of what Cirque has decided to do moving
Right, okay.
forward.
All right, thanks for the clarification.
So
It's unfortunate because we were making some headway, but whatever.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, Brian. I just wanted to make you guys aware of that, so that hopefully when the time comes, I can make the introduction to you.
That would be great. Thank you.
And I don't want to keep our guest, next speaker, waiting too long. Thanks, Pat, for joining us. So Pat's with Connecticut Main Street Center. Their mission is to kind of infuse some life into Connecticut's downtown. Pat and I met about a year ago doing a Torrington walk, and it was really insightful. And he volunteered to come down. He actually met Sadie and I on for a visit with the town and had some really great ideas. So with that being said, I just wanted to give the floor over to Pat and have him tell us a little bit of.
Before he starts, I'd just like to make, hey, Pat.
How you doing, Mike?
Good. Could you contact Rory on that fire that he was talking about on Main Street? Because doesn't your group have some monies that for grant monies that could help out?
We don't necessarily have the grant money, but we'll find something that you might be able to tap into. So if I get this
for Rory, yeah.
Yeah, great.
Well, good evening, everyone. As Brian said, I think it's actually been a couple of years, Brian. Time flies. And Mike and I met also in downtown Ansonia, probably about a year ago. Yep. And so we are a statewide nonprofit organization, and we are a resource to local communities, trying to drive investment and vibrancy to downtown locations. I do have a PowerPoint that I'll try to bring up. Run through that quickly for you. Can people see that?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Great. So we celebrated our 25th anniversary last year. We were actually started by Connecticut Light and Power as a division of the company, and then rolled off as a nonprofit 4 years later. We're part of a whole national Main Street movement. There's state coordinating programs throughout the country that work with the local communities. And in addition to support from Eversource, we're very tied into the Department of Economic and Community Development. They support us financially, UI, and the State Historic Preservation Office. We also get some funding from a few different bank foundations and event revenue that obviously has been hit quite dramatically during this pandemic. The things that we do are education and training programs. We have networking events where we try to get the CEOs, the communities, the town planners, the economic developers, board commission members, go visit another downtown, get a sense of what that community is trying to achieve, and hopefully bring back some ideas and best practices to your own town. We advocate at the state level, the legislature. We were big advocates 5 years ago of tax increment financing. Basically, that's a really unique and powerful economic development tool. In the past, you needed to get state approval, and now it's up to the town. I think I have a couple slides on that a little later. We have a very robust social media presence, Twitter, Facebook, you name it, and we try to share best practices, success stories. When we see a resource that we think that the downtowns are going to be interested in, we're trying to get it right out to the community. Seymour's been a member community over the years. And really, when it comes down to membership, you get what you put into it. We have a bunch of resources. We have events. We have networking. We're a phone call away. So if the first, if the mayor, or excuse me, the first select woman, Jim, Brian, any one of you, have a question about downtown and you want us to help identify a resource, that's what we're here for. I'll tell you that Crystal Presler, who's the economic developer in Newtown, she calls us her favorite organization to be tied into, because we actually give very specific, practical advice that you can, that's actionable. We're working with towns all across the state, from village centers, the traditional town centers like you have in Seymour, to some of the more urban downtowns, working with 80 plus communities across the state and growing. We really espouse a comprehensive approach to downtown development. All the different topics that are on this slide right here, you need to be working on all of them, someone in the town, and it could be multiple parties. But you need housing downtown. You need to work with the small businesses. Historic preservation in a downtown like Seymour is critical. You got the train stops, so the transit-oriented development, making the rest of the area walkable and bikeable to the train platform. You got the incredible resource of the Naugatuck River right there. What an attraction. People love water and want to be around water. So highlighting the river is absolutely critical. I know you got a couple of parks. What it really comes down to is, having an organization. This is what we have over here, downtown, managed downtowns. Someone has to be responsible for the downtown. And that might be the part-time economic developer that you bring in. Maybe that's the shops of Seymour that I believe I saw on Facebook. It's a tried and true model all across the country. The 4-point approach, looking at economic vitality, knowing what your market is, the design, how do the buildings look in relation to the road? Do you have appropriate wayfinding signage to public parking and to the trailheads? All of that. You need to promote your downtown. You need to have some kind of brand, something that's going to draw folks, not only visitors from the outside, but even residents of Seymour. What's going to get them to get out of their house on a Friday night and go and enjoy a meal at a restaurant in downtown Seymour? And then I certainly mentioned organization. It really, again, someone's got to be responsible. It could be a town staff member. It could be a nonprofit organization that gets established. You name it. I could send this to you later. I've already gone through the 4 points. I'm not gonna, belabor that. Placemaking, complete streets, just making it more attractive and, walkable downtown is going to be the calling card. That's what people want. I'm sure you've all seen the news recently with the COVID and folks, the housing market. And I and other people think the Naugatuck Valley is prime. And the reason being is because not everybody can afford a $600,000 home. And so they're going to be looking at the Naugatuck Valley. Still professionals, still people who are going to be traveling on the train to Stanford or beyond. But they want a slightly lower price point for their, as they launch their careers, still paying back student loans or having their families. We, during COVID, have really made a point of getting information out about all of the different small business resources, PPP. I can't stress this any higher. Anybody who's on this call, there is, between now and the end of March, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for some of these businesses to get a loan that is translated into forgivable loan, a grant essentially, now between now and March, end of March. Over the next week, it's for businesses that are 20 employees or less. This should be posted to your Facebook pages, Twitter, whatever you're utilizing to communicate with the businesses in Seymour. Now is the time. There's this one. There may be another package down the road, but you got to take advantage of it when you have it. We have a video library online, so we can look at 24/7. Nowadays, with COVID, for a retailer, you need an online presence in addition to your bricks and mortar. Plain and simple. If you want to survive, you want to have that extra revenue stream. We obviously are very much into the brick and mortar. That's what makes the main streets, the downtowns, is keeping those spaces filled. And one of the ways that they potentially could remain filled is to have the business be able to get some revenue off of online sales. Absolutely critical to do that. Main Street America, which is our parent, they did a survey at the beginning of COVID, and 63% of small businesses did not have a online presence at the time. That's changing dramatically, and we need to change it even more. We've had a whole webinar series, Recovery and Resiliency on Main Street. Our next one is going to highlight Wyndham, and they have an incredible downtown called Willimantic. And they came up with a whole branding effort, and the economic developer and the design firm that came up with the brand is going to give this this webinar. Unfortunately, because of the Zoom, we're capped at 100. We already sold out for this one, but I'll tell you that every one of our webinars is recorded and put on our website for view 24/7. We look at Main Street as economic development in the context of historic preservation. So having these older buildings restored and getting new investment is definitely what we're trying to achieve. Our main streets are critical for basically town tax generation as well as state generation. TOD, you've got a station, not a lot of land right around your station, but there's land within walking distance of that train station, or the train platform, I should say. I was just looking while you guys were speaking, the wire company and the Seymour Lumber, which I think Sadie had shown me, right across the river there. Prime for housing. Absolutely. And I know that a lot of the economic development commissions are thinking, industrial, they're thinking office, that type of thing. You got to be able to get what you can get based on what the market's going to bear. And housing is a big driver right now in the state of Connecticut. And there's funding available for housing type projects in the state of Connecticut. So you mentioned, the property owners, how could it be marketed? I'll give you an example. One of the things that we have is I got a email distribution list of 300 plus people who are involved in, they're developers, they're architects, engineers, financial resources. I'll take a property like that if we're provided the information, the aerial photo, whatever, some of the background, blast it off to these 300 plus people to say, hey, it's available. As long as it's, in a downtown or it's in a mixed use commercial district, we'll utilize our platform to let people know about that. Bunch of towns throughout the state are capitalizing on TOD. Your counterparts in Ansonia and Derby and Shelton, they're all working that angle. They know that the rail stops and the highway access and the housing that they can put up is critical to what they're trying to achieve. A lot of towns are utilizing the arts as a economic development driver. A lot of communities use restaurants as a driver. Restaurants have been hugely impacted by COVID, but I believe people are going to come back. With the vaccines happening, it's just a matter of time. People are going to want to get out of their houses again and patronize the businesses. The challenge is we need to keep the restaurants afloat in the meantime. Vacant buildings don't help anybody. So that's one of the things we really tried to push, is finding ways to adaptively reuse underutilized properties. As I mentioned, tax increment financing. I'm willing to do a TIF 101 for you, for other town officials, so you understand what this tool is. 10 communities have adopted TIF so far. Most of them have adopted TIF districts for their downtown area. You can use TIF to pay for ongoing pay-as-you-go capital improvements, whether that's streetscape, park improvements, sidewalks, municipal facilities within the district. You can utilize it to pay back a debt if you were going to do some kind of a utility extension and you wanted to use TIF to pay back the bonds. That's an opportunity. You can also do what's called a credit enhancement agreement, basically a developer's agreement, where they pay the tax, but then you rebate a portion of it back to them. This is a big success story in downtown Windsor Locks. This was a vacant, all these windows were bashed in. There actually was a rooftop garden by nature and that just had grown up, and a developer has converted this to 160 units of mixed income housing. And the town did a 10-year 50% rebate of the future tax generation of this building. And the developer was able to take that commitment from the town for 10 years that they would get 50% of the taxes that they pay rebated. They went to a financer and got $700,000 up front that they could put in towards the project. That's why it's called tax a credit enhancement. Again, I could go in to a full-blown presentation for you on TIF. You might really want to consider creating a TIF district that incorporates the wire company, incorporates the Seymour lumber, but also includes the whole downtown. And the reason I say that is because some of the taxes that could get generated from that other driver of that redevelopment, you then could utilize for some programs in the downtown area across the river. I'll give you Windsor Locks and New Britain have, with their TIF revenue that's been generated, created small business loan programs or a lease, basically a lease buy down, so that to give some for a period of time some lease relief to tenants in the downtown area. Very, very flexible tool. We have a program called Come Home to Downtown, where we've really encouraged the changing or the vacant upper stories of multi-story mixed-use buildings, get them into housing, get units, you feet on the street, people who can patronize the local businesses on the first floor. Absolutely critical in a lot of the historic downtowns. This is a project that happened in downtown New Britain. The developer did 16 units of housing above first floor retail. It was in a quarter mile of the fast track bus stop. The state was so excited about this project that Commissioner Rediker, who's pictured over here, was at the ribbon cutting. It was that important to them. We did a statewide summit on retail in the age of disruption, with online sales. Again, with Amazon and others, it's really important that the retailers find other ways to compete in this day and age. So we try to get out information relative to that. That's our website. I'm on LinkedIn. Again, all of our Facebook and other social media. We get the word out as widely as we can. And with that, I'll answer questions.
Thanks, Pat. That was really really informative. Are there any questions for Pat?
Yeah, so if you were to say then a vision, it sounds like to me, not so much industrial space, but more arts and restaurants and housing is more where you're leaning.
Okay, so let me clarify. If you can get some industrial in your town, absolutely do it. It's really all in context and the properties that you're looking at and what makes most sense for that property. I think that there is the opportunity in our downtowns, and I think probably in downtown Seymour, without knowing some of the available space that's available, is you can have what we call small scale manufacturing, where they're producing something. Maybe it's a coffee roaster. Maybe it's an artisan, and they need to have production space. But in addition to the production space, which might be in the back of one of these older historic industrial buildings, and in the front they have the shop and they have the coffee shop, that type of a thing. So some towns are incorporating into their zoning regulations a flexibility for small scale industrial. We've gotten so used to separating uses. But by doing that in a historic area of like Naugatuck Valley with these really cool eclectic spaces, why not have some industrial uses if you can get the box trucks in and not necessarily the 18-wheelers, whatever, to make something happen. You already have a downtown study. You already have a plan in place, and if you went with a part-time economic developer who had part of their role as shepherding the downtown, part of it is looking at that plan and not having to sit on a shelf. What are the actionable items in the plan and we espouse this, is just come up with what are you going to try to achieve this year. Everybody wants immediate change. Our downtowns are always going to be there, and they're always going to need attention. Okay, so whatever incremental improvements that you can make, whether that is streetscape, more trees, more lighting, whatever it may be, filling the vacant spaces, all of it is tied in together. I don't know how you're trying to market the community now. But I've been highly advocating to our communities, find someone in your town who is willing to do drone video and potentially do it, pro bono for you, and come up with some short videos. You got that Naugatuck Valley, the river, and you got a really cool, eclectic downtown, ripe for, a couple of interviews with a restaurant owner and a shop owner, show some of the aerial video, wrap it into one promotional, and people will start thinking of Seymour Center as a really great place to go.
I like that drone idea. I'm just wondering, though, how our plan has changed, because we had that study done by Craig years ago. But, at the time when I read it, the train station wasn't really being used. People here aren't really, we drive everywhere. People don't really, the train station wasn't really a focal point. But I'm wondering now with COVID, if the importance of that train station has changed.
Yeah, I think it has. The state right now, you probably are aware that the legislature is pushing the Waterbury line very, very heavily to get additional funding to increase the level of service on that line. And again, it's not just having the line there, you have to have the housing proximate to the platform. So you want to look in that whole downtown area, and right across the river is where's there opportunities to create that housing mix. And having that housing downtown is going to help those restaurants and the retailers, most definitely. I don't know what the story is, just looking online off of Franklin Street. What is that whole thing above the grocery store? Is that someday gonna be able to be reutilized for another purpose? Doesn't look like there's a ton of room, but on the other side of the tracks, there does seem to be a small parcel that could potentially have housing on it. So again, without knowing the spaces a little bit better, it's hard for me to tell. But I think you do certainly have those opportunities. What's the status of the vault? Is it open and still?
I mean, as far as I know, it was open and they were doing. They seem to have, from what I saw, they seem to have ventured out and done maybe some after school. They were promoting some after school type stuff, but I don't know. Maybe someone else on the call knows better.
They tried to do something that's really cool. It's basically was revenue sharing crowdfunding on a site called Mainvest. Unfortunately, they weren't able to meet their goal to raise money that way, but they were one of the first businesses in the state to attempt to utilize that revenue sharing model, and it is going to take off. So unfortunately, sometimes the first people in, it's a learning experience, but we're very much into encouraging that type of a platform of crowdfunding, not only for the businesses, but I didn't look, are you guys, are you a registered community with Sustainable CT?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
So Sustainable CT right now has a matching grant program up to I think $25,000 for, if you're going to do a park enhancements and public art in your downtown, and you put the project up online, generate some cash from your residents and maybe others, and then Sustainable CT would match it for that enhancement. So it's pretty cool thing happening right now. So I guess what I'm getting at, these are the type of things, like, we're aware of this because we're a statewide organization. So we learn of these opportunities, and it's our goal is then to share that with folks all across the state so that you have at least the opportunity. You can pick and choose which opportunities you decide to go with, but at least you knew about them.
So how does that work if we're a part of Connecticut Main Street Center? So do we need to call you on a regular basis to see what's available, or is that something that we're going to get constant communication back as to what's available to us? Like, how does the communication work between the towns and Connecticut Main Street Center?
Yeah, you just need to let us know who needs to get our emails.
And then you just do email blast every
We email blast constantly. I mean, when I say constantly, it's that balance. We want to get the information out, but we're also not, we don't want to overwhelm people's inboxes either. So, but that's the way. And then whether it's the chair of the EDC, whether it's Rory, whether it's the part-timer that you end up hiring, they need to give us a call when they have a question, plain and simple. I've been reading up, and I know that there's some folks in town that want a full-time director. And I guess I would say again, look at it incrementally. Look at it incrementally. If you can get someone on part-time, they can demonstrate that it's making a difference, then you go back to the powers that be and seek additional resources.
Have you worked with the town that doesn't currently have an EDC director? Like, do you have someone?
There's a lot of towns
There's
a lot of towns that do not have EDC directors.
And how do they deal? Where does the communication go to?
You from our perspective, that if the town is still a member, it may be going to the town planner, it may be going to the first selectman, whoever they designate as the one to receive our correspondence. And again, it can be multiple people from a community. If we have the data, we just add it to our constant contact. I was a local economic developer for 20 years. I worked full-time for the town of Suffield, and I was a part-time consultant for the town of Windsor Locks. And I can tell you, I'm biased. I love the economic and community development profession. I think it makes a huge difference. Having that point person, having that person who is aware of the different programs that the town can tap into, having that person who can draft up grant applications on occasion. We brought a lot of money back to Windsor Locks and Suffield by having those positions. And I know you had Cirque and you had Sadie, which is great at the time. I think you can find someone who's got the skill set needed locally. Was it a realtor? Was it a former banker? Was it?
We tried to merge with and utilize Sheila O'Malley from Ansonia, have her work part-time.
Yeah.
But that got shot down.
Well, if it got shot down, then you just have to go down another avenue, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
But as I would say, you don't let perfection be the whatever that phrase is to prevent you from getting started. Yeah. You could frame up a job description for a part-timer with a big focus on downtown, because it should be. But as part of it, they're going to market the town in general. What I was just hearing is it doesn't sound like there's a ton of spaces in your industrial park that they have to be marketing at this point in time. So there's other projects that such a person could be could be running with right now.
So the information that you provide the towns, is it the level of detail where you're saying this is available to you, this is who you need to contact, this is what you need to do? Is it that level of detail, the information that you're providing towns?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we want to make it so that you know who to contact. I gave a presentation that there's actually now a Main Street working group of the legislature. So I'd love to tap into your delegation and make sure that they're participating in this working group. And I'd be happy to share the presentation. I let them know different financial resources available to communities all across the state. And a lot of the legislators just, we're aware of some of them, but to see them all kind of packaged together, they were really surprised as to, the different things that towns can try to avail themselves of.
And how about with COVID? How have you had to change the way you work with towns? Is there something different going on that your Connecticut Main Street's doing because of COVID?
It's been huge. Well, number one, from just a logistical standpoint, we've gone completely remote, and we're constantly on Zoom. This is what we do. We Zoom. We are hoping at some point to be able to resume site visits to the communities. We're not quite there yet. I don't think, the bottom line is I have to keep my staff safe and the safety of the people that we'd be visiting, but it doesn't look like it's going to be that much longer. We have on the calendar at the end of April our first in-person event in over a year, and the goal would be to have, it's called the Spotlight on Main Street, and you would get to tour downtown New Milford. Whether or not we're going to be able to carry on that event or we postpone it to the summer, we haven't made that decision just yet. But I would, again, on those type of events, I highly recommend someone from Seymour to attend. You'll get inspiration, you'll bring it back to your commission and share the ideas, and hopefully things happen.
And Pat, you did that for me in Torrington and Naugatuck when you did the Connecticut Main Street Center things. You kind of inspired me to reach out to you and try to get you to share some of your knowledge with our town, and that was very insightful. Thank you very much.
I'll mention just a couple more things. I checked out the town profile, and the median age for Seymour's 41. You're doing better than some communities. They're up at 43, 44, 45 at this point. We're an aging population in Connecticut, and all the more reason to identify housing opportunities downtown that will attract some millennials. And the millennials who end up locating and housing downtown are not going to be making a big, huge dent to your school system. They just won't. The units won't be big enough to do that. But the hope is you get them established in downtown Seymour. When they're ready to have their family, they're going to buy the single family homes that are available in the community. It's all kind of it all works together.
Excellent.
Very
That
good.
being said, are there any questions from anybody that wants to ask anything?
Good.
No, I'd just like to get a copy of the presentation if I could.
Yep.
Thank you.
Who shall I?
You could email to me, Pat, and then I'll disseminate it and get Mike. I'm sure you probably have Mike's email, but I can get you Rox's and others if needed. If anybody wants a copy of it, feel free to reach out.
Okay. So if you do choose to re-up with the Connecticut Main Street Center, just let me know who we should be incorporating into our constant contact distribution.
Perfect. Thank you
Yep,
so
will do.
much.
Okay.
Thanks, Pat.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night and enjoy the rest of the week.
Thank you. All right, so I guess that being said, we'll move on to the EDC call log. I think we kind of went over some of that with Rory before.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we want to touch on that?
No, I think we're good with that.
All right, move on to unfinished business. Strategic plan on the website. I'm not really sure where we are on the website or strategic plan, to be honest with you.
Rory did give me an update on the website, and that's still in the works. Hopefully something soon, but nothing as of yet.
And the plan is still being drafted or being reviewed by others?
That I don't know. I don't know where we are in the plan or anything. I know that not much has happened since we last asked about it. That's all.
Okay,
So,
maybe
there's
maybe
nothing
Rory
new
can
to
answer that down the road for us.
Yeah, there's nothing new to report, basically. As far as the
New
strategic plan, I don't have any feedback on that.
All right. Mike, anything? Nothing?
No, nothing.
Is there any new business?
No, we just got to make sure we get some appointees.
Yes, and we have 2 potentials on the call. So, and then Rory had mentioned some other people that were, but I don't have names as to who those were.
Rory,
So,
I know you're not supposed to be commenting, but if you can send us information on how to get new appointees appointed and any other new ones, that would be that'd be helpful. Oh, there he is. He's back.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of appointees, it's, I know 2 of you had reached out to me and asked me to invite people. As I mentioned, we usually ask the political parties. That's usually how we recruit people for boards. If you guys have a preference, you're going to be working with them. We also have the option of adding alternates, so that if a member, cannot attend a meeting, you can have a full board and have a deeper roster in case you should, lose any members. You can just, promote someone from alternate. So I don't know is there, I can reach out to someone outside the meeting to try to get a preference. We can get somebody, we were going to appoint people, the members we got from the political parties at the selectmen meeting last night. But because you had asked me to invite people that were maybe interested in joining, I held off. We can get them appointed at the meeting on the 16th, but I just need to know, who you want. The members that were from the political parties, I can give you the names if you know them. It was Richard Luby, was the Democrats. I know he served on the Livable Communities Commission at one point. And then Stephanie Koskalowski was the name put forward by the Republicans. And I personally don't know much about them beyond that.
Okay.
okay.
Which, I can put you guys in touch if that's what you want. You just let me know what you want. And for the 16th, we'll get some people appointed. So you should be all set for April.
Okay.
Okay. I think we'll get back to you before the 16th, right?
All right. Is there any other new business?
No. So I'll talk a bit more about this the next meeting, but I did talk to Mary McNellis from Seymour Rec about a quarterly newsletter that they put out, seeing if there's something there that we could use. The Economic Development Committee, I don't know what we would use it for. There was some space on there, but it goes to every home in Seymour. So we could talk that I'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting. We can talk
You're saying space at the,
on the newsletter, in the newsletter,
oh, in the newsletter, okay.
in the newsletter.
Not physical space.
No, in the newsletter. I don't know when the newsletter, now with COVID, they don't have a lot going on. So the next newsletter might not be till July
Sure.
or August, but if we could start talking about it now, if there is anything that we want to put in there, whether it be,
Something fun going on downstairs.
or
downtown.
or promoting, just trying to help and businesses here and people shop and dine in the town or something. I don't know. We could talk about it next meeting, but I'll put it on the agenda.
Okay.
That was it.
All right. That being said,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Roxanne seconds that.
Yep.
All those in
Second it.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Rory.
No
Have a
problem.
good night.
Take
Have
care.
a
night,
good
all.
night. Bye-bye.